Hello, everyone. I'm Miss Shannan here from the Twin Cities Film Fest brought to you by Vuma TV. Very excited to be hosting this panel today on one of our very, very profound documentaries, FLINT, Who Can You Trust? So with me today, we do have the director of FLINT, Anthony Baxter. Thank you very much for bringing a couple of our members of the FLINT community. And also we have our friend Catherine here for the Minnesota. Catherine, remind me again the name of your organization. I know that you are local, so we appreciate you being part of this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Shannan. I'm with the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy.
So I appreciate you are a part of this because I think that that'll be instrumental in trying to make sure that there are not communities here in Minnesota that go through all the horrific and terrifying events that are going on currently in Flint. So thank you very much for doing what you do. So I do have some questions, and I wanted to start with Anthony. Anthony, thank you for telling this story, but why did you decide to tell this story?
Well, Miss Shannan, I was in Detroit and I'd been showing a film there at a film festival, and one of the residents from Flint was there and had told me about what was going on with the water. This was before the water disaster became a big story in the United States. And so I went along to Flint and was incredibly shocked by what I saw and felt that the residents were just not being listened to. I mean, residents like Nakir and Sol, who are with us today, were making it very clear to those in power, be it the governor or the mayor of the city, that the water they were drinking and paying these huge bills for was making them very, very sick and endangering their lives. And at the time, it was a feeling of, we just can't go on like this, and nobody was listening to them. I felt it was just an appalling situation. So I started to document what was going on. And then, of course, it became a big story when the New York Times covered it, and the media descended on Flint. But it was really after the cameras left as well that I witnessed what was going on there on a day-to-day basis of people just going through what they're going through now, which is not trusting and not having safe water, and feeling as well that those in power have misled them at every step of the way. And still they're paying these ridiculous water bills. So I think it's been a journey of 5 years that I've been following this, but it's been a real privilege as well to work with the residents who are here with us today.
Anthony, as you were telling the story, you said you went there at first from one aspect of the story. Did you even have any idea that it was going to turn into so many twists and turns and have all of this intrigue for this poor community?
No, I mean, certainly not. At the time, it was very much a case of, I wanted to try and get the film out as soon as possible to bring to the world what I was witnessing in terms of the situation on the ground for the residents. Now, when it became a big story, it was really at that point that there were quite a few broadcasters in America who were interested in the film, but they then said, oh, well, it's all been covered in the news. We don't need to do the film anymore. But as you say, Miss Shannan, it was really from that point onwards of, after the cameras left, where the twists and turns really started to evolve. And I think, if you put yourself, as I have as well, in the place of a Flint resident, where you're there, you're being told that the water is safe, you don't trust it, you can see it's not safe. I mean, you can see, as Nakir and Sol will tell you, you know the damage it's doing to you and your children, and nothing seems to be done. And it's this incredibly frustrating, awful, life-threatening situation for people to be in, where nobody is listening to them, and those in power who when we vote in politicians, we hope and pray they're going to do the job for us and look after our well-being and our safety and our health first and foremost, but that just was not being done.
And Nakia, we see your story throughout the documentary, and as a mother myself, this must have been just maddening, and still must be maddening, to continually have people gaslight you like that and say, no, what you're seeing and what you're experiencing isn't true. What's your experience like today?
To me, it's through this pandemic. Plus, as I said, our immune systems is already compromised. Me and the people of Flint is still struggling today. It's to me, it's worse now with this pandemic because, as I said, our immune systems have already been compromised. Then through the pandemic, I'm a single parent. I don't have transportation to get the necessities that I need also for this pandemic. And even with the pandemic, we need clean water. It has been over 6 years, and we still do not have clean water here in Flint. They call this pure Michigan, and we have been pure poisoned.
Sorry that you're still dealing with that. And Mama Soul, as an artist and also a resident, it did seem really, at least you had the ability to try and use your platform to try and get a little more spotlight shown to all of this. What's it like for you trying to process all of this as well, since I know you're a parent as well?
It's something that you have to deal with day by day. Trying to deal with it as far as, like you said, you can only do so much because you're only going to get so much in return. And so every day you have to wake up and say, what can I do today? For me, that's the easiest way for me to get past it because, we've tried so many different things.
Right.
We've spoken to so many different people. We've been told so many lies. So it's a day-to-day effort to remedy the issue. Like I said, my pipes between the street and the sidewalk, which is city property, that short space, my pipe was just swapped out a few weeks ago. So,
So as you are continuing this struggle, and this is for Nakia and Soul, how do you say you went day by day, but what are your plans so that you can figure out ways to encourage yourself and encourage your community to keep this fight up?
I can't give up. I have
Right.
kids to take care of. My daughter, she's turned 21, so she doesn't even trust the bottled water. She has recently moved from out of Flint. She doesn't trust the bottled water that we're getting. But my son, he's 11 years old. I can't give up. I'm going to keep fighting until we get justice for Flint.
I actually did move. I did move. I had some opportunities in another space after the Steve Harvey show. Me and Steve Harvey's manager, Rashawn McDonald at the time, are really good friends. And we had been doing some work together. And he advised me, after we watched that show, me and him sat in his office and we both cried.
Yeah.
As cancer survivors. And he says, so you have to leave. The Calvary's not coming. And your health has been compromised already. And there's more opportunity. And me and my son, we just up one morning and jumped in our car and put in the car what we could. And we left with that and never returned, only to work. I came back to work often. But we just returned last summer because I was diagnosed with breast cancer again while I was home doing some work, and we never returned to Atlanta. But I did leave, just to try to provide a healthier opportunity and environment for my son.
Right.
And I knew that I would constantly come back to do the work where the city needed me, because I didn't make an announcement that I was leaving. Nobody really knew I left.
Right.
But I did leave, and you can't give up. Like you said, you can't give up, but and most of the residents in Flint can't move. Most of the residents in Flint can't put a filtration system in their house. To be honest, I've been able to go through Habitat for Humanity and different, use the resources that I can as a single mom, an independent artist, and a cancer survivor to get all that I can, so every resource I get, I share it with somebody else.
And I know we addressed this as well, Anthony, in the documentary, Flint, Who Can You Trust? Do you think that a lot of this comes from a economic standpoint, and definitely because you're part of the BIPOC community? Do you think it'd be different if we weren't Black and brown people that were most affected by this?
Absolutely. I mean, it's environmental racism. And it's shocking to see it happening time and time again. And we see the spotlight thrown on it through the Black Lives Matter movement at the moment across the country. But I think what's so appalling is the way that, as Sol was just saying, you know, when she was having that conversation, the cavalry isn't coming. There was no cavalry coming to help the people in Flint. There was no federal assistance from the government to rip out all the pipes. That would have been something that could have been done right from the start to show by Barack Obama at the time when he was in the White House, to show the people of Flint and the country that they took this so incredibly seriously and we're going to nail it there and then. And although the damage had been done terribly and still is going to go on for years, as we've been hearing, it hasn't stopped. And people in Flint are by and large still using bottled water because they don't trust the water, even though the scientists are telling them it's safe. Nobody believes what they're told. And that all comes back down to this huge problem, which you see repeated in countries across the country, you know, across the United States, in cities across the United States, and it's so embedded. And I sort of worry about how much more of a spotlight can be thrown on this. I mean, when we see what we see on our Twitter feeds or YouTube feeds from videos that are shared of this going on all the time, it really is truly, truly appalling.
Right. I also appreciated your perspective, Anthony, because you could tell throughout the documentary how truly angry this made you.
Yeah, I do get very angry about it because I put myself, whichever film I'm trying to make, I'm trying to represent as much as I can the residents, because people like Sol and Nakia and Wasir and Jalen, their children, you know, they put their trust in me to try and tell the story. Frustratingly, it's sometimes, you know, as we know, with the COVID pandemic, we can't, it stops us from getting these stories out there even more.
Right.
But we do what we can. But I think the thing is that when you're faced with these politicians who, as you say, are so evasive, and the people, the residents, have tried time and time again to get answers out of these people. And, you know, my role as a filmmaker is to try as hard as I can as well to get those answers, and not always successfully, but all we can do is what we can. And you know, I think the fact that these people like Governor Snyder, who nobody has been held to account, really. Nobody's been standing up in court facing charges for the Legionnaires' deaths, the deaths from other issues to do with the water that we don't even know the full story on. The incredible, the awful plight of children in Flint going on today, where we don't really know the damage that's been done by the lead poisoning. And Nakia, as she says in the film, you know, has lost children because of this. You know, and that awful day-to-day thing that you live with going forward. It's an incredible testament to the people of Flint that they have so determinedly each day live this with the COVID thing on top of everything else as well, and all that they're having to deal with. I mean, I think they're an inspiration really to the rest of the country, the residents of Flint.
Well, Catherine, our advocate from the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, is this story more common than we think?
Absolutely, I think it is. When Flint broke as a story, I was pretty new to my job as a CEO. And I remember asking myself the question that I think a lot of environmental advocates and people who have dedicated their life to clean air and clean water like me ask themselves, which is, if Flint happened here, would we be able to stop it? Or would we even know that it was happening?
Right.
And what I've come to realize in the years since we first learned about Flint is that it already is happening here. And it's happening in every state. We have communities that are ignored. that the government has failed, and that we essentially treat as sacrifice zones, areas where we accept that we dump waste, that receive less government protection, and somehow we've grown used to that, which is horrifying. Here in Minnesota, these might be tribal lands where we build mines that pollute, and we build pipelines across them. There are also brown and black communities of color in North Minneapolis, for example, which has essentially become an industrial corridor. And so I think it's really important for advocates like me to make sure that we're centering voices like Nakia and Mama Soul in our work, to know that we're serving communities and centering their needs in our advocacy and their priorities when we think about how we protect air and water. Because if we don't do that, then we're only going to allow more and more FLINTs, and we're not going to protect the communities that are already overburdened.
Right. And I do have one thing that I wanted to call Anthony out on, and I'm not being completely flip, just a little flip. When I first saw the documentary, I was like excited to hear this story about the community members of FLINT. But I'll be honest with you, I was a little taken aback when I saw Alec Baldwin's name on it. I was like, why did they get money to pay Alec Baldwin? So I was very, very happy to see him show up in the documentary and actually be instrumental in doing things. So how did Alec Baldwin get involved in this scenario?
Well, he gave his time for free for the project. I had interviewed him previously for another film, and I was in touch with him from time to time and just telling him what I was doing, and I explained that I was still working on this film in FLINT. And partly, as I mentioned earlier, because the story had been on the news, there was a lot of unwillingness really amongst networks in America to commission a film on it, and I sort of felt that having somebody like Alec as an executive producer on it would be helpful in getting a wider audience to the film and getting it in front of executives. So he gave his time for free, and when he saw an early cut of the film and saw what people like Sol and Nakia were going through, he said, look, I'd like to come to FLINT, and I had asked him whether he could narrate it as well, and he came for just a day, and unfortunately I remember at the time we were hoping to visit Nakia. He hardly had any time, didn't have much time with him. But I did feel it was an important thing that he did that. You know, he wanted to come, he gave his own time, he paid for himself to get there, and it was a part of, I think he has always been very interested in documentaries and particularly stories of importance. And I think that he felt that it was a project that he just wanted to support.
Well, I appreciated that. That was an interesting reveal for it. And I think it's always good to know who is helping us get all of these stories out, because I don't know if you completely agree, Nakia and Sol, that it needs more than just us sometimes. Sometimes you do need to have those appropriate allies and those bigger names that are taking notice as well. How can we, Catherine, how can we take small steps, anyone who's viewing this panel and who's seen FLINT, how can we take small steps to try and make sure that this first doesn't happen again, and second, to impact where it's already happening?
Well, one thing I think that's really important to do is to keep our agencies and our elected officials accountable. And that was something that, fell apart here in FLINT. The government lost credibility, the state agencies lost credibility because they seemed to be making decisions that valued some cost savings over the health of residents. And I think it's really important that we try to keep our agencies accountable to our communities. And you can do that, of course, by voting. But you can also do that by calling elected officials and by calling your governor and letting them know that it's important that they serve all communities and keeping them accountable in that way. I think that's a small step that we can do. It's also important to have powerful advocacy communities in your area. So, MCEA in Minnesota, this is part of our mission, is to keep government accountable. I would hope that every state would have a group like us who does that. So find those groups and, make sure you support them.
Right now, I'm working with an organization called Made Institute, where we work with returning citizens, people coming out of prison. It is so hard for African Americans when they come out for us to get jobs and all of that. So I'm working with Made Institute, and I actually work at the Women's Transitional House. We're just trying to get the needs for our people coming up out of prisons, because it's hard for them. I mean, they come out, they already are felons. It's hard for them to get jobs. So coming through MAID, we're in partnership with other people to where they can get their EBT cards and needs that they need.
I actually took a year off to heal.
Mhm.
I had 3 major surgeries, and I'm a holistic healer, so I don't do chemo and all of those things. So I really did take some time off to focus on myself, my healing, my home, moving our things from Georgia here. So I really have kind of been a recluse, sort of, over the past year to really focus on my healing. I have written 4 projects over this time, and I'm working on a book and some other things. But I have friends that do call me and say, where can I bring some water?
Right.
You know, still to this day, I had a friend contact me from Detroit a few weeks ago, and he's been bringing water like at least once a month. And I just connected him with other people because I'm not very active right now in the community at all. I rarely leave the house if it's not to go to a doctor's appointment or to, you know, I really have been taking the time necessary to heal my whole self. But beside that, you know, just constantly ask about what's going on in Flint. Just keep us on your mind and on your tongue and in your heart. You know, I think that's the most important thing.
Right. Well, thank you for that, Mama Soul, and also bless you on your recovery. I hope that it goes speedy for you. That is a journey upon journeys that you are dealing with. And also to you, Nakia, I know that, you know, as much as it is, I don't know how the school system is in there, but right now, as the parent of a 12-year-old, I know that we are everything right now. I'm the therapist, I'm the teacher, I'm the this, and I'm the mom. So bless you both for everything that you were going through. And Anthony, how do we support Flint, our film, Who Can You Trust?
Well, we were hoping to be playing in lots of festivals and to get the film more widely seen in the States. But it's great to have opportunities like this. Obviously, we've been derailed somewhat by COVID-19 and the crisis which has engulfed the world, really. But we would hope this over the next few weeks and months to have more events like this, more virtual screenings, and eventually do some cinema screenings, but also to get it more widely seen through a streaming platform or on television in America. And so we have a distributor who's working hard to try and achieve that, but it's not easy getting these films out. So I really appreciate you, Miss Shannan, and the rest of the staff there at the film festival for selecting the film and for putting a spotlight on the people of Flint and what they're still going through.
Well, we appreciate you putting this film together, Anthony, all the work that you did on this. And, you know, our hearts are with you. We stand with you and the people of Flint. Anything that we could do to help promote this film, we'll make sure that we do that as well. So I want to say thank you to Anthony Baxter, Catherine Hoffman, Mama Soul, and Nakia Wakes for joining us. And remember, you can see this film and many other films here on our website. Just go to TwinCitiesFilmFest.org, and we will see you all again soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.